Hello, students. Welcome to KENE'S Educare, a group of KENE solutions. This is part 3 of lesson number 7, Diversity in Living Organism. Okay, so so in the last part, that is part 2, part 1 may I have given you a brief introduction that what this lesson is all about. Part 2 may I made you aware of, we discussed on Kingdom Monera, we discussed on Kingdom Protesta. Now we are left with 3 more kingdoms to discuss on. That is, I hope that now you know the names of the kingdoms, at least if you're not aware of the characteristics, the names of the kingdoms, division and the phylum should be clear into your mind, because that is the basic thing that we are dealing with, right? The lesson is all about that. So that basic things was first you should know कि यहाँ पे कौन सा kingdom, there are 5 kingdom system, right? So you should know all the 5 kingdoms का name. Then kingdom Plante, okay, that has 5 divisions, so you should know the 5 divisions that the kingdom Plante have. And kingdom Animalia that we are having, that includes 10 different phylums, so you should know those 10 phylums, as well as we have discussed in the last part about the hierarchy, how do we represent it, right? So you should know that hierarchy as well, how it should be followed. Okay, so hierarchy may it starts with, like, we have the kingdom, then we have the phylum, then we have class, order, family, genus, species. So this is how the hierarchy goes on, and I hope so that whatever I have told you all to take a note of, you have taken a note of it and you have written that important points, because I have given you to write a definition of biodiversity, as well as there was another definition which we call it as region of mega diversity. So these are the two important definitions which I came across, and that is the reason I have told you to write a note on this. And I have told you to take a note of this hierarchy as well, the groups, the hierarchy of classification, the different groups that includes. Okay, after that we have discussed on kingdom Monera and kingdom Protesta, so we'll do a quick revision. Okay, the first thing that we are having is classification and evolution. Okay, okay, so classification and evolution के लिए, now evolution takes time, we already know that if there is an evolution, it requires time, because as and when the time is going on, we are evolving day by day. Earlier we had a small phone, now we have our tabs, we have our android phone, we can do anything with that, right? So that is also a kind of evolution that we are seeing, right? Earlier what happened, like when I was small of your age, I didn't knew how to operate a mobile phone. Probably there was not a such kind of android phones which were available during that time. Okay, but now you are aware of how to operate an iPad, how to operate a tab, how to operate a mobile phone, how to operate Instagram, Facebook, and everything you're aware of, right? So this is also a kind of evolution that is being seen in the, you can say, in the youth which is coming up, because earlier you didn't knew all of these things, but the youth that we are having now, they are aware of all such things, right? So this all things, everything, the evolution, it requires time. And there is one called as Charles Darwin, if you remember him. Now this is not the first time that you came across his name, Charles Darwin, right? So he has given an idea of evolution in 1855 itself. So all the idea of Charles Darwin has been included in his famous book, which is called as The Origin of Species. What it is called? The Origin of Species. So those organisms who have Asian design, now if you see that organism and you see that they are having a kind of Asian design within them, and they have not changed themselves, and they are having that, they, we call them as a primitive organism. Now we all are aware of, I have already told you this, okay, that as we are evolving, what is happening, that there are certain changes that we come across, right? So that are not changed with respect to this primitive organism that we are having. So those who acquired certain special characters during the time period, we call them as an advanced or higher organism. And my concern about explaining you that the person who is born, they're going to surely die someday, right? So now this primitive organisms we are not having in our world, right? Because we all have evolved. ऐसा नहीं है that only one human beings evolves after a certain period of time. All the population which is present, they evolve at a time, right? So now we have evolved and we have developed certain special characteristics within ourselves, within a span of a time period, and we call this characteristics, like we have this advanced or higher organisms which are present here. Okay, so I hope that this evolution has been clear to you. After that, we have discussed on biodiversity. Now bio means living and diversity means variation. So biodiversity means the diversity that exists with respect to the different life forms that we are having, right? So biodiversity is a word which is commonly used. We are using it so that we can refer to the difference or the variety that we are seeing in the different life forms. And this life form में जो variety दिख रही है, that is with respect to a particular region itself, right? So diverse life form, they share the environment. Okay, diversified life form means variation जो हमें देखने मिलता है life form में, they all are affected by each other, right? If there is a climatic condition which is changing, all the diverse form of life which is existing on the earth, they are also going to show that some of the other effect have been shown by them, right? So as a result, a stable community of different species, they come into existence. What happens because of this diverse life which is existing on our earth, and they are sharing the same environment, they are also getting affected by each other, right? So we are having a stable community of different species who are living together, and they are having their own existence. So humans have played their own part in recent time, where we humans are changing the balance of such communities. Because what are we doing? We are making certain changes with respect to land, water, climate, and because of this changes that has been done, we are changing the characteristic itself, right? And this characteristics of the land and water, as well as, you can say, it should not change. Okay, the characteristics. Okay, so if we are changing the characteristics of land, water, climate, and all the things, what happens? We are having an effect on the, like, the diversified kind of communities which are existing. We have an effect on them, right? So it's necessary that we are having an eye on it, and we are not changing the characteristics of all such naturally available things that are available on earth. Okay, so rough estimate states that there are about 10 million species on the planet. Now still, this is a rough estimate which has been given, that there are about 10 million species which are existing on the planet, and out of this 10 million species, we are only aware of about 1 or 2 millions of them. Okay, so the warm and the humid tropical region of the earth. Now this warm and tropical region of the earth is present between the tropic of Cancer and the tropic of Capricorn. So this warm and humid tropical regions, they are rich in diversity of plant as well as animal life. Okay, what are they rich with? Okay, we have to be like, we have to check the diversity which is existing between the plant and the animal life, and we call this region that is existing between the tropic of Cancer and the tropic of Capricorn, We call this region as region of mega diversity. Now mega means huge. Okay, so there, because we can see in this region that there are rich diversity of plants as well as rich diversity of animals. That is why we call this region as region of mega diversity. So of the total diversity which is present on a planet, more than half of the diversity you will see that they are concentrated in few countries, like the countries like Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, Zaire, Madagascar, Australia, China, India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Okay, so these are few countries where more than half of our diversity which is existing on our planet is getting diversified, or it is concentrated in such countries. Now, as I told you in the last class, that at least you should be aware of 5 to 6 names which have been given here, and you should know the definition for region of mega diversity. Now, region of mega diversity is itself explaining you the term. Mega means huge, diversity means huge variation, where the region where you can find huge diversity with respect to plants and animals, we call that region as region of mega biodiversity or mega diversity. Okay, and biodiversity means, bio means living and diversity means variation. So the living variation that is existing on earth, the different kinds of diverse kind of life forms that exist on our earth, that we call it as biodiversity. Okay, so I hope that the concept of diversity is clear to you all. Then the next concept that we saw was the hierarchy of the classification. That is how the grouping has been done. Now I compare this hierarchy of classification with respect to the, you can say, with the family tree that you draw, where you show your grandpa and grandma, and then you show your grandpa and grandpa of your mother's side. From your dad's grandpa and grandma side, you get like dada and dadi, say you get your father, and nana and nani, say you get your mother. Now when your father and mother they come together, they, now you are there, now you and your wife are going to have your children's, right? So this is how the hierarchy goes on, and this is a thing how we are classifying the different animals, because as I told you that there are more than 10 million species that are present on our planet, and studying each and every plant, each and every animal is very much difficult, right? So that is the reason the hierarchical classification of these groups were very much important. So the first hierarchy that came up was given by R.H. Whitaker sir, and he have like given 5 kingdoms to us. Okay, the first kingdom is Kingdom Monera. Then we have Kingdom Protista. So Kingdom Monera and Protista we have already discussed about, right? So after Kingdom Monera and Protista, we have Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, and Kingdom Animalia. Now I have made it very much clear to you all that Kingdom Plantae is further divided into 5 main division, and Kingdom Animalia is further divided into 10 different phylums, right? So I hope you know that. So here what has been given in the hierarchy of classification as biologists such as Ernest Haeckel in the year 1894, Robert Whitaker sir in the year 1969, and Carl Boyser in the year 1977. They, all the three biologists, they were trying their hard, and they have tried and they have classified all the living organisms into broad categories. So here not only Robert Whitaker sir, but along with him, like Robert Whitaker sir ke pehle there was Ernest Haeckel sir in the year 1894. He was also trying to classify the living organisms into these broad categories. Then after Robert Whitaker sir, we have this Carl Boyce sir, who was again trying to classify these living organisms, and they have classified the living organisms into kingdoms. So the classification was given by Whitaker sir, where he have proposed 5 kingdoms. Kitne? 5 kingdoms. So we have Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, and Kingdom Animalia. So how many kingdoms we have? We have 5 different kingdoms. Okay, so this 5 different kingdoms are widely being used, and the groups which are formed here on the basis of the cell structure, the groups are formed on the basis of what? on the basis of cell structure, what kind of cell structure the organism is having, what kind of what is the source of nutrition and the mode of nutrition of that organism, and what kind of body organization that organism is showing. So based on all these things, we are going to classify the organisms into different hierarchical classification. Like we have kingdom. So suppose take an example, kingdom plantae के अंदर जितने भी plants हैं हमारे earth के ऊपर, all the plants come under this kingdom plantae. Now, depending upon the cell structure that they are having, the source of nutrition that they are having, depending upon the body organization that the plants have, okay, depending on all these characteristics, we are going to divide the plants further into phylum. Then again, we have the division as class. After class, we have the order. Then we will divide the plants with respect to different families. And now this family is going to have genes, and genus se we get the species of that respectively, right? So this is the hierarchical classification that you have to remember about. Okay, so like Carl Bosser, what he had done, he had modified and he have introduced it. He had introduced this hierarchical classification by dividing the Monera into Archaebacter. So Carl was he was dependent on, like what he was doing is he was dividing this further as like kingdom Monera को उन्होंने divide किया है. Kingdom Monera is the first kingdom that we are having. So he had divided this Monera into Archaebacter, which we also call it as Archaea, and Eubacteria, that is bacteria. So there's two different types of Monera is been given by Carl Bosser. Okay, so this is about the hierarchy of classification. So I hope now we have discussed on two different topics. First is biodiversity, you are clear with it. The hierarchy of classification which has been given, you are clear with it. Now further classification we are do it by naming the subgroups at various levels, and here it has been given in the following scheme, where we have the kingdom, and if we are discussing about the animals, we have phylums. अगर हम animals kingdom animalia पे बात कर रहे हैं, then we are going to use the term phylum. If we are discussing on kingdom plantae, then we have 5 different divisions. So for animalia, we have 10 different phylums, and for plants, kingdom plantae, we have 5 different divisions, which we are going to further divide them both as class, order, family, genus, and species. So this is the, you can say, hierarchical classification which has been given here. Okay, so thus by separating the organisms on the basis of hierarchy of characteristics into smaller and smaller group. अब यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, जैसे जैसे we are coming to order, we are coming to family, genus, species, क्या हो रहा है, we are seeing that the hierarchy के through, the hierarchy that we are making, we are characterizing it and we are making more smaller groups altogether. Okay, so here after characterizing them and bringing to smaller groups, we are arriving at the basic unit of classification, which is the species part. Okay, so what organisms can be said to belong to the same species? What do you think? कौन से organisms जो है we can say that they belong to the same species? So broadly we can say that a species, it includes all organisms that are similar enough to breed and perpetuate. ठीक है, species के पास क्या होते हैं, सारे organisms होते हैं which are similar enough so that they can breed as well as they can perpetuate together. Okay, so here I hope that you are clear with this part, biodiversity and hierarchical classification. So only you have to remember this kingdom, say phylum, then class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, now we have kingdom Monera, where the example of kingdom Monera includes bacteria and Anabaena. Okay, so जो भी organisms kingdom Monera के अंदर आते हैं, those organisms, they are not going to have a well defined nucleus or organelles. Okay, and since they are not having nucleus and organelle, they are not going to show multicellular body design. Okay, तो किंगडम मोनेरा के हम अंदर हम कैसे ऑर्गेनिजम्स डालेंगे, जिनके पास वेल डिफाइंड न्यूक्लियस नहीं है, दे आर नॉट हैविंग ऑर्गेनल्स, नॉट दे आर शोइंग एनी काइंड ऑफ मल्टीसेल्युलर बॉडी डिजाइन. Okay, on the other hand, you will see that they show डाइवर्सिटी बेस्ड ऑन मैनी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स. ठीक है, तो किंगडम मोनेरा के अंदर जो भी ऑर्गेनिजम्स आएंगे, they are going to show diversity, and this diversity is going to be based on many other characteristics. Okay, so some of them, they have cell walls while some do not have. now कुछ organisms ऐसे होंगे जिनके पास सेल वॉल होगा, कुछ organisms ऐसे होंगे जिनके पास सेल वॉल नहीं होगा. and of course, having a cell wall and not having a cell wall, they are going to have different effects on the body design, right? So whether they are having a cell wall or they are not having the cell wall, there will be a different effect which is going to be seen in the multicellular organism, right? So the mode of nutrition of organism in this group, ये मोनेरा के अंदर जो भी एनिमल ऑर्गेनिजम्स आते हैं, the mode of nutrition the organisms are going to have, like they are either going to synthesize their own food through the process called as photosynthesis, and plants are like mostly plants are the one who synthesize their own food, and they are called as autotrophic. Okay, or they get it from the environment, then we call it as okay. So यहाँ पे autotrophics are plants and heterotrophics are the animals or the organisms who are depending on plants for their food. So the mode of nutrition that this organism show, they are either going to be synthesizing their own food, that is they are autotrophic, or they are going to get it from the environment, that is they are going to be heterotrophic. Okay, so this monera, kingdom monera, is going to include bacteria. Okay, so bacteria has been given here. This is how the bacteria look like under a microscope. Then we have blue green algae, which we also call it as cyanobacteria, and we have mycoplasma. So this is the example of organism that comes under kingdom monera. Now it is very much important that all the five kingdoms that we are studying, at least you should know the five examples of each kingdom. And when it comes to division and phylums, वहाँ पे you should know at least 2 to 3 examples of organisms which are included. Okay, now the second phylum that we have is kingdom, not phylum, is kingdom protista. So kingdom protista जो है, this group, it includes many kind of unicellular eukaryotic organism. Okay, so kingdom protista का जो group है, that includes many different kinds of unicellular eukaryotic organisms altogether. Okay, so some of this organism, they are even going to use appendages. Now what are appendages? Cilia and flagella. Now I hope that you are aware of what cilia is and flagella is. Can you see this thread like things which are present outside? And this is a flagella, a thread, single thread which you can see. This is a flagella, and this hair like projection is, you can call it as cilia. So now this appendages like cilia or whip like flagella, they are going to help that specific organism to locomote, that is to move from one place to another. Okay, and the mode of nutrition, the organisms that are included under protista, they are either going to be autotrophic or they are going to be heterotrophic. Now autotrophic means what? They are going to make their own food, and heterotrophic means what? They are going to be dependent on plants or other animals for their food, then they are called as heterotrophic. Okay, so as kingdom protista includes all unicellular eukaryotic organism. The example of this is like, example of this unicellular organisms are, we have algae, we have diatoms, and we have protozoans. So this 7.2 represents the examples of kingdom protista. So it includes paramecium, it has amoeba, and it has euglena. So euglena has flagella, which is long, and it has a nucleus in the center. Amoeba has a nucleus, and remember one thing, that amoeba जो है, it changes its shape. Okay, and we have paramecium, which is having a macronucleus as well as a micronucleus, and there is a waste also which is present there. Okay, now today we are going to discuss on kingdom fungi. Now this is the third kingdom which has been given by R.H. Whitaker sir, and if you can see the diagram, okay, So we have Saccharomyces, that is we have yeast. Okay, what do we have? We have Saccharomyces, that is yeast. We have penicillin, which is a mold, and we have agaricus, which is a mushroom. So these are the different fungi that we are having. And if you are aware of that, some of the yeast and some of the fungi, they are useful to us, and we use it in day to day life. Now, if you know the bread that we are eating that has yeast which has been added into it, right? Then mushroom agaricus, we eat certain kind of mushrooms as well. And penicillin, if you know about that, penicillin has been used as a medicine as well for treating high grade fevers. Okay, so all the fungi that we are having, not all fungi are bad for our health. Some of the fungi, they are even good for our health, and we are using them to treat certain disorders and diseases as well. Okay, so fungi, they are going to be heterotrophic eukaryotic organism. Now, if it is heterotrophic means it is dependent on other plants and animals for its food. Now, I'll tell you one situation. Suppose now you had your Diwali vacation or any of your vacation for 10 days, okay? And before 10 days, when you have been to school, the last day before the vacation, mama has given you chapati and bhaji in your tiffin, and what you have done, you have forgotten to remove that tiffin box from your bag, and since 10 days you have not even opened your bag. Okay, now on the 11th day, when you're going to school, you're packing your bag, you see that the tiffin box is still in your bag. Now the reaction of yours is, oh my god, ab to maar padegi, right? So what happens is, when mama opens the tiffin box, you will see that there are fungal growth which occurs on them. So fungi always grows on decomposing matter. Okay, when it grows on plants, it grows on okay, what did I said कि fungi जो है that grows on decaying matters, जो चीज़ खराब हो रही होती है. Suppose an animal is died, so वो animal के ऊपर कौन grow करेगा? वो एनिमल के ऊपर कौन ग्रो करने वाला है? वो एनिमल के ऊपर you will see that the fungi will grow. They are going to decompose that animal, and that animal body is going to get mixed in the soil. So nature have solution to every problem that we are having. The animal is not going to be at that place only. After few days you will see that the fungi will decompose them, and that is why fungi are also called as decomposers or saprophytes as well. Okay, so fungi kya hai? They are heterotrophic. They are dependent on dead and decaying matters, plants and animals. Okay, so they are heterotrophic eukaryotic organism. Now eukaryotic mein you can say that they are eukaryotic means their nucleus is well developed. Okay, then some of the fungi, they use decaying organic material as food, and therefore they are called as saprophytes or saprotrophs also. Okay, now as I gave you the example of, you can say I gave you the example where I told you that आपकी दिवाली vacation थी, you have that chapati in your tiffin box and you opened that. So that was the decaying organic material. Chapati खराब हो रही थी ना, and that is why fungi started growing on it. So some of this fungi, they require this decaying organic material for them so that they can grow, and that is why we call this fungi as saprotrophs as well. क्या बोलते हैं हम इसे? Saprotrophs as well. Okay, so others, they require a little protoplasm of a host organism for food. So some of the organism, they are going to require a decaying organic material as a food, while some fungi, they are going to need a living protoplasm of a host organism so that they can make them as a food. Okay, and we call that those type of fungi as parasites. ठीक है, तो जो fungi decaying organic matter को use करता है as a food and they are growing there, that type of fungi we call it as saprotrophs. Okay, and the fungi who are who requires a living protoplasm of an host organism as a food, we call that fungi as parasites. Okay, so now we know saprophytes and parasites, right? So many of them means many of the fungi, they have the capacity that they can become multicellular organism at a certain stage in their lives. ठीक है। तो कुछ फंगाई के पास ये कैपेसिटी भी होती है कि वो एक मल्टी सेलुलर ऑर्गेनिज्म बन जाते हैं व्हेन दे रिच अ सर्टेन स्टेज इन देयर लाइफ, एंड वेयर दे आर गोइंग टू बिल्ड देयर सेल वॉल, एंड वी आर ऑल अवेयर ऑफ व्हाट सेल वॉल इज, सेल मेम्ब्रेन इज, वैक्यूल इज, राइट, बिकॉज वी हैव स्टडीड दैट इन द लास्ट लेसन इटसेल्फ। तो ये फंगाई क्या करेंगे, दे आर गोइंग टू बिल्ड देयर ओन साइटोप्लाज्म, not cytoplasm, cell wall. What are they going to build? Fungi is going to build that cell wall, and that cell wall is made up of a tough complex sugar, and this tough complex sugar we call it as chitin. क्या बोलते हैं हम इसे? Tough complex sugar को we call that as chitin. Okay, so examples of fungi are, we have yeast. So this is how the yeast, we have yeast का example as Saccharomyces, which has been shown. Then we have molds. Molds may we have penicillium, from where we get penicillin, which is used to treat high grade fever. And then we have mushroom, that is agaricus. So these are the examples of the fungi which have been given. And mushrooms on the bark of the tree. Where can you find these mushrooms? On the bark of the tree. Okay. So I hope this fungi has been clear to you. What you have to remember, fungi are heterotrophic eukaryotic organism. कुछ fungi जो है they need decaying organic material as a food, and we call them as saprophytes or saprotrophs. And कुछ fungi जो है they require a living protoplasm of a host organism for their food. What do they require? Living protoplasm of an host organism, and they're going to use them as a food, and we call them as parasites. ओके, सो कुछ ऐसे फंगाई होंगे, लाइक एक कुछ को हमने बोला सेप्रोट्रॉप्स, कुछ को पैरासाइट्स बोला, एंड many of the fungi they are going to have the capacity where they are going to become a multicellular organism when they reach certain stage in their lives. Okay, so they have cell wall. उनका cell wall किससे बना होता है fungi का? Cell wall is going to be made up of a tough complex sugar, and the tough complex sugar का cell wall जो होता है, that this tough cell wall sugar we call it as chitin. And the example of this fungi are yeast, molds, and mushroom, which grows on the bark of the trees. So whenever you're writing an answer on fungi, you have to draw these three diagrams, labeling this as Saccharomyces yeast, penicillium is a mold, and agaricus is a mushroom. So these are the three different examples of the fungi which have been given. So here we complete with this third kingdom as well. So we started with kingdom Monera, then we studied about kingdom Protista, and then we have discussed now about kingdom fungi. Now when it comes to kingdom Plantae जो है, that is further divided into 5 main divisions. कितने? Kingdom fungi is divided into 5 main divisions, and I'll tell you which are those 5 main divisions that we are having. See, I'll show you. Okay, we are left with some part of the fungi. See, some fungal species, they live in permanent mutually dependent relationship with the blue-green algae, which is also called as cyanobacteria. ठीक है, तो कुछ फंगल स्पीशीज जो है वो कैसे है, परमानेंटली, ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ टाइम के लिए दे आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन अदर्स सो दैट दे कैन ग्रो, बट सम ऑफ द फंगल स्पीशीज यू विल सी कि वो परमानेंटली म्यूचुअली डिपेंडेंट होते हैं किस पे, they are dependent on blue green algae, which we call it as cyanobacteria. And ऐसे टाइप के relationship को that is existing between fungi and the other organism or the cyanobacteria, we call such type of interaction or relationship as symbiotic relationship. Okay, so this symbiotic life it forms are called as lichens. क्या बोलते हैं इनसे? Lichens. तो ये जो symbiotic life form exist करता है between the fungi and the cyanobacteria, which is also called as a blue-green algae, we call this symbiotic life form as lichen. And हम सब ने lichens या lichens, अब जो भी बोलते हो वैसे, we all have seen that this lichens, they are slow growing large colored patches. What are these lichens? These are slow growing dark, you can say, large colored patches which are present on the trees. Okay, So I hope kingdom fungi has been clear to you all, and I want you all to take a note of it. I'll tell you all that at the end. Now we have kingdom plantae to discuss and kingdom animalia to discuss. But before that, I want to discuss about this five kingdom classification. And I want you all to draw this, whatever I'm drawing on the screen along with me, so that you have a better idea ki what exactly the five kingdom classification is and how it is exactly divided as. Okay. So see, now living organisms. What did I just said? See, I'll make it here. हम जो living organisms है ना, we are of two type. एक होता है prokaryotic, we are prokaryotes, okay, and secondly we have eukaryotes, okay. Now this prokaryotes, it has all unicellular organisms. क्या होता है prokaryotes के पास? Unicellular organisms, and this prokaryotes में it includes kingdom Monera. Okay, so kingdom Monera कहाँ पे आया? Prokaryotes. So kingdom Monera is going to have all the unicellular organisms. Now eukaryotes में, when it comes to eukaryotes, we have unicellular as well as multicellular organism. Okay, so unicellular के अंदर you will see we have kingdom Protista, and then multicellular is going to further get divided as with cell wall and without cell wall. Okay, so I'll write it here. Unicellular में which kingdom do we have? We have second kingdom, that is kingdom Protista. Okay, now multicellular, as I told you, they are divided into two types or two kinds. So multicellular eukaryotes are going to be of two kinds, that is they can either be with cell wall or they can be without cell wall. Okay, so अभी with cell wall में we have two different kinds. One performing photosynthesis, do not perform photosynthesis, and the other one which is with cell wall, they are going to perform photosynthesis. Now perform photosynthesis is very much clear what it is, right? So who performs photosynthesis? It is kingdom Plantae. Which kingdom? Kingdom Plantae. And who doesn't perform photosynthesis but it is having cell wall? It is kingdom Fungi. Now we have discussed about kingdom Fungi, right? So that is kingdom Fungi. And multicellular eukaryotes who are not having cell wall is we human beings. Who are we? Multicellular eukaryotes without cell wall. So I am going to write here, we are all included. We human beings are included under kingdom Animalia. कौन से kingdom में आते हैं हम? Kingdom Animalia के अंदर, because they are multicellular and we are also multicellular. Our body is made up of cell, right? So we are multicellular animal. Okay, so this is how, whenever you're writing anything, like not only if you're not writing it, for your understanding you should know कि living organisms को दो parts में divide कर सकते हैं, as prokaryotes and as eukaryotes. ठीक है? So prokaryotes में we have unicellular organism, That includes kingdom Monera. Eukaryotes में we have unicellular as well as multicellular organism. So unicellular eukaryotes includes kingdom Protista, and multicellular eukaryotes जो है they are further divided as like few of the organisms they are going to have cell wall and few are not going to have cell wall. So the eukaryotes, multicellular eukaryotes who are having cell wall, now they can either perform photosynthesis or they will not perform photosynthesis. If they are performing photosynthesis, that includes the kingdom Plantae. If they're not performing photosynthesis, that includes kingdom Fungi. And then multicellular eukaryotes without cell wall is kingdom Animalia. Okay. So I hope that this has been clear to you. So before starting about kingdom Plantae, I want you all to know that kingdom Plantae is divided into 5 main division. Okay, you're already aware of, but आपको basic चीज़ें पता होनी चाहिए. So we have Thallophyta. Okay, then we have Bryophyta. We have Pteridophyta. Then we have Gymnosperms. And we have Angiosperm. So these are the 5 division of kingdom Plantae. Okay, so I want you to know about this thing. Now before starting that, we are going to see this classification of plants. Okay, now see what happens here is, now the plant organism that comes under the plant, they can have like, they can be differentiated into, they can have this differentiated plant parts, or it can be like they're not having this differentiated plant part. Okay, so those who do not have differentiated plant part, those plants do not have this differentiated plant part like root, stem, leaf. Okay, they come under division Thallophyta. किसमें आएंगे ये? Thallophyta में आएंगे. Now the one who is having differentiated plant part, ठीक है, जिसके पास differentiated plant part है, okay, now they are going to have, some of them they are going to have Bryophyta is the one. Okay, Bryophyta क्या है? Who is not having any specialized vascular tissue. So I'll write do not have specialized vascular tissue. Okay, and when it comes to with vascular tissue, then we have 2 type. ठीक है, क्या हुआ? With vascular tissue, we are going to have 2 types of plants. The first type is one producing the seed. As you can see, one do not produce and the other one as produce The one who do not produce seed, it includes pteridophyta. Okay? What does it include? Pteridophyta. And the other one which produce the seeds, they are called as phanerogams. क्या बोलेंगे हम? Phanerogams. Now these phanerogams, they can again be of two types, where the seeds are naked, and other condition that you can have, where the seeds are enclosed inside the fruit. Okay, so I'll write bare naked seed, and here I'll write it bare seeds inside fruit. So now if they are having naked seeds, they come under gymnosperm, and if they bear seeds inside the fruit, it includes angiosperm. ओके, अब एंजियोस्पर्म को हम फिर से डिवाइड कर सकते हैं दो पार्ट्स में, एज डाइकॉटलिडेंस और डाइकॉट्स, और मोनोकॉटलिडेंस और मोनोकॉट्स. Now monocots means they are going to have seeds with only one cotyledon, and dicot means they are going to have seeds with two cotyledon. Okay, so this should be clear, this much should be clear. The chart, the classification of the plant which is being shown on the screen, I want this thing to be very much clear into your mind. कि अब कुछ प्लांट्स ऐसे होते हैं जिनके पास डिफरेंशिएटेड प्लांट का पार्ट नहीं होता, जैसे दे डोंट हैव रूट्स, स्टेम्स, लीव्स एंड ऑल, सो दैट इंक्लूड्स थैलोफाइटा. कुछ ऐसे होंगे पार्ट्स, दे आर गोइंग टू हैव डिफरेंशिएटेड प्लांट पार्ट, लाइक इफ दे आर हैविंग दिस रूट, leaves and stems, then they are either going to have, like, they are going to be with vascular system, or they are going to be without specialized vascular system. If they are not having a specialized vascular tissue, we call that as bryophyta. This is the division of bryophyta, where the plants are not having any specialized vascular tissue. But if the plants are having this vascular tissue, then here again we have two different types, where the plants are not producing the seed, so that includes pteridophyta. So pteridophyta वाला division जो है, उसके अंदर कौन से plants आएंगे? ऐसे plants who are not producing the seeds. Okay, and phanerogams, like the plants which are producing the seeds, we call them as phanerogams. And this phanerogams, what they, अभी कुछ phanerogams ऐसे होते हैं who have naked seeds. उनके seeds जो है, they are outside only, they are not enclosed within the fruit. And कुछ seeds ऐसे होते हैं who are enclosed within the fruit. Okay, so if the plants are bearing the naked seeds, then that all comes under this gymnosperm. All such plants, they come under gymnosperm. And if they are bearing the seeds inside the fruit, then they come under this angiosperms. And angiosperms जो है, we have two different kinds. We have monocots and dicots. Now monocots matlab the seeds are going to have only one cotyledon within them, and dicots means what? The seeds are going to have two cotyledons within them. So this is what we call it as monocots and dicots. Okay, so I hope that this classification of plants wala table is very much clear to you all, and this is how you are going to study yourself. You're going to start with this classification chart, and after that you're going to jump on to kingdom plantae. अब kingdom plantae के अंदर सारे ऐसे plants आते हैं which are going to be non-motile. What kind? Non-motile means, have you seen plants walking with you? Have you seen plants walking? No, right? So they are at a stationary place, they are having a fixed place. So such kind of, like, as they are not showing any movement, we call them as non-motile. So kingdom plantae has all the plants, and all the plants, they are non-motile. We know that plants, they make their own food, right? And hence we call these plants as autotrophs as well. Why do we call the plants as autotrophs? Because they are producing their own food through the process of photosynthesis, right? Then these two things we are all aware of very much, right? That they are not moving, so they are non-motile. And if it is written motile, means they move from one place to another. Non-motile means They do not move from one place to another. Okay. And second thing, we know that the plants, they make their own food by the process called as photosynthesis, and that is why we call them as autotrophs as well. Okay. Now these plants, they reproduce asexually. How do the plants reproduce? Asexually, by vegetative propagation, or they are going to reproduce sexually as well. So plants जो है, if they are reproducing asexually, then that asexual reproduction is going to be by vegetative propagation, or even they can reproduce sexually as well. Okay. So these are multicellular eukaryotes. What are plants? Plants are multicellular eukaryotes, and the plant cell contains the outer cell wall and a large central vacuole. What do the plant cells have? Plant cell is going to have an outer cell wall. See, difference between a plant cell and animal cell you are aware of, right? तो plants के पास outer cell wall होता है, but animals do not have this outer cell wall. Okay, so plant cell contains an outer cell wall as well as they have a large central vacuole which is being present. ठीक है, तो प्लांट सेल के पास क्या है? एक तो आउटर सेल वॉल भी है, एंड दे हैव अ लार्ज central vacuole as well. Okay, so plants contain photosynthetic pigment, and we call this photosynthetic pigment of the plant as chlorophyll. Now where is this chlorophyll present? Chlorophyll is present in the plastid. Now we all know that plants have plastid as well. We have discussed on cell wall, vacuole, plastids, cytoplasm and everything in the last class. So you are aware of the, you can say, components of the cell, right? So plants के पास क्या है? They have a photosynthetic pigment, that is chloroplast, which is, or chlorophyll, which is present in the plastid. And because of the chlorophyll which is present in the plant, the plants are able to make their own food, and animals cannot, because animals do not have this chlorophyll or the chloroplast. Okay, so plants have different organelle for anchorage, reproduction, support and photosynthesis. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है that plants have only one organelle and the one organelle is performing all the function. It is not like that. Okay, so the plants are going to have different organelles, and these different organelles, they are going to help the plant for in case of anchorage, for reproduction, for supporting the plants in different activities that the plants are doing, as well as in the photosynthesis process. So there are different organelles which are performing different kinds of functions that the plants has to. Okay, so plants are multicellular eukaryotes with cell wall. What are plants? Plants are multicellular eukaryotes who are having these cell walls, and they are autotrophs. Autotrophs means they make their own food, and that is why we call the plants as autotrophs. Okay, so they are autotrophs, and they use chlorophyll for photosynthesis. What do they use? They use this chlorophyll for photosynthesis. As I told you that chlorophyll is one of the pigment which is present only in plant, and this is the reason why plants can make their own food and animals cannot, right? So thus all the plants they are included where? They are included under this kingdom Plantae. And since plants and animals, what has been given? Since plants and animals, they are most visible form of diversity of life around us. So all the plants कहाँ पे आएंगे? They are included under kingdom Plantae, and all the animals, they are included under kingdom Animalia. And since plants and animals, they are making our like they are having this different forms of diversity around us, so that is why they are very much important. Now next thing that we have is kingdom Animalia. ओके, किंगडम एनिमेलिया के अंदर सारे एनिमल्स आएंगे, एंड अमॉन्ग्स द 5 किंगडम दैट वी आर हैविंग, द लार्जेस्ट किंगडम इज द किंगडम एनिमेलिया. नाउ यू हैव टू टेक अ नोट ऑफ इट. Which is the largest kingdom that we have? The largest kingdom is kingdom Animalia, because animals are multicellular eukaryotes. What are animals? Animals are multicellular eukaryotes. However, like plants, as I told you, animals do not have chlorophyll, as well as they do not have cell wall. So Animalia में जो भी animals आते हैं, animals do not have chlorophyll and they do not have a cell wall as well, and therefore the members of animal kingdom, they exhibit heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now what is meant by heterotrophic mode of nutrition? It means all the members of animal kingdom, they are dependent on either plant or different animals for their food, and that is the reason we call them as we call that they have this heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Okay, so kingdom Animalia, we can classify them into 10 different subphyla based on the body design or differentiation pattern that they show. Okay, so this include all the organisms which are multicellular eukaryotes without the cell wall. So kingdom Animalia के अंदर सारे organisms आते हैं, and these organisms I told you in the first sentence as well that they are multicellular eukaryotes. They are not having chlorophyll, they are not having cell wall, and we call them as they are having what? They are having heterotrophic mode of nutrition. That is, they are dependent on their food. They are dependent on other plants and animals for their food. Okay, so I hope you are clear with kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae, and kingdom animalia. Now in the next class we are going to start with this 5 divisions of kingdom plantae, that is about thallophyta, bryophyta, pteridophyta, then we have gymnosperms and angiosperms to discuss. So these are the 5 different divisions of kingdom plantae, and kingdom plantae includes all the plants that exist. Okay, after that we are going to discuss about the kingdom animalia, where we have 10 different phylums to discuss. So we have kingdom porifera, kingdom coelenterata, which is also called as cnidaria, then we have platyhelminthes, we have phylum nematoda, phylum annelida, phylum arthropoda, phylum mollusca, phylum echinodermata, then phylum protochordata, and lastly we have this phylum vertebrata. Now this phylum vertebrata, it has 6 classes to discuss on, because this phylum vertebrata is further divided into 6 groups. So we have cyclostomata, then we have Pisces, then we have amphibia, reptilia, aves, and mammalia. So these are the 6 different groups that come under kingdom you can say kingdom animalia का phylum vertebrata में. Okay, after that we are going to discuss on the nomenclature of the nomenclature system. Okay, and then we have summary to discuss on, like what exactly we have discussed in this lesson, diversity and living organism. And there are 6 to 7 questions that we are going to discuss at the end after studying all the parts which are covered in this lesson, diversity in living organism. So I hope that you are clear with the different fungi, the different kingdom system that we have discussed today. The rest of the part for this lesson, diversity in living organism, I'm going to continue that in the next part. Okay, so I hope you are clear with kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae, and kingdom animalia. Now the classification we will start in the next part. Thank you everyone.